Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to the stream. Chelsea head across London to take on West Ham at the London Stadium Saturday lunchtime. Second London derby, I suppose, in the space of 3 days. And having stolen 3 points at Vicarage Road on Wednesday night, Chelsea look to make it 2 wins in the space of 3 days against the West Ham side, doing very well this season, finding themselves in the top 4. Admittedly, they've struggled a little bit recently. No wins in their last 3. But, George, you've got to be under no illusions. This is going to be a tough away day.
Yeah, it will be. They'll be right up for it. I think we're probably playing them at just the right time in terms of their form. They're slightly starting to dip. I think they had a difficult one to take at home to Brighton. I think it was 1-1, conceding late on there. And they've just seen, performance-wise and results-wise, just seem to be tailing off slightly. So might be a good time to play them, but the early kickoffs are never easy. We find that we tend to struggle in the early kickoffs, although we had a very positive one not long ago. But we need to keep winning. It's as simple as that. I mean, Liverpool and Man City only look stronger. West Ham are going to really try and push for that top 6, top 4 positions this season, and make no illusions. It's going to be a physical affair. It's going to be a difficult affair. I think Antonio seems to be out of sorts recently. I read it. I think I saw a stat that he's hadn't scored a goal in 6 or 7 games. So that's a positive for us. That's Premier League games, that is. But yeah, we didn't play well the other night, but we got the result. And, as long as we get the result, that's all that matters, really. Yeah,
no, 100%. I think at this point, with the game's coming thick and fast, it is just about getting the results. You're not going to have a good performance when you're playing every 2 to 3 days. It's just not how it is. It's just about grinding the results out and getting on to the next fixtures. But having said that, George, we have had a lot of injuries. Slightly more positive news from Tuchel's presser. Jorginho and Reece James return, which is going to be a massive, massive plus. How much of a difference is that going to make? Because we struggled a lot in midfield against Watford, and we missed Reece James down that right-hand side in an attacking presence as well. So how much of a big plus is it to have those back?
Huge. They're so important for our team, particularly Reece James. I think, he's one of our biggest attacking threats, top goal scorer in our team, and he's a fantastic player down the right-hand side, both attacking and defending. So we did miss him greatly. I think midfield control, Jorginho is, there's none better. I mean, the Ballon d'Or nominations speak for itself. He's had an incredible year. He's still on a high, and we need him. So anyone that's coming back into the fold at this point is a massive plus. But it's just like you said, mate. It's the amount of games. I mean, playing 6-7 games in the space of a month is seriously tough. And we've said it on the channel. The Christmas is such a pivotal time for a lot of clubs. But when you're going for a title, particularly Chelsea's history, if you have a good Christmas, we tend to push on. If we don't, it tends to be curtains. So it's a real pivotal time for us, and we just need to keep going.
Yeah, I always think Christmas is a time where you don't necessarily win the league, but you can certainly put yourself out of contention if you have a poor festive period. But George, slightly more positive news. Obviously, we saw Trevor Chalobah go off injured with what looked like a suspected hamstring injury in the game against Watford. Tuchel today in his presser saying that actually it's looking better than first feared, and he should be able to return and play some part in the festive period. How much of a positive is that?
Huge positive, considering the situation with Chilwell at the moment. We don't want to lose too many defenders, and with Thiago Silva's age as well, he's going to have to be well managed. So Chalobah's one that we need to rely on, and a hamstring one can be a month, couple of weeks, but luckily it just seems like it's quite a high impact knock. So hopefully he'll be able to, after a rest, be able to come back into the fold at some point in December. So that's got to be a positive for us, because he's really claimed his space. I feel, even in front of Christensen, which a lot of people probably wouldn't suspect. Maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, he's done so well and showed that he belongs at this top level. Obviously, prior to the injuries picked up, obviously, but he'd started the last 4 games. Leicester away, Juventus, Man United, and Watford. And I think he probably would have started tomorrow lunchtime as well. Just obviously, unfortunately, he's picked up that injury. But, the injury issues are slightly easing. The only ones missing now is Ben Chilwell long term, and still no return date in sight for Mateo Kovacic. And obviously, N'Golo Kante's out again. I mean, we've talked about this before, George, but his fitness concerns at the moment and his injury record it's when he plays, he is great, but he's not playing very often at the moment. I mean, that's a little bit concerning, sort of moving forward in the next season or two. The guy's 30 years of age now. We're perhaps going to have to look at doing something in that area. Maybe not in the summer, but maybe in the following summer, perhaps, because Kante not getting any younger and his injury record is really poor, particularly this season.
I think it comes with the territory of how he plays the game. Just, constant running, going in for challenges, at full pelt, trying to nick the ball. He gets probably a lot of players trying to nick him as he comes in 50-50s. And it's the nature of how he plays the game, unfortunately. But he's one of those, isn't he, that, like you said, if he plays, he's absolutely fundamental to how we run. I mean, we missed him greatly against Watford last night. The night before. And, I think he's still irreplaceable. I don't like to use that term so much because, players come and go and we can find someone to replace him like Declan Rice. But when he's on form, I think all the best clubs in the world would like him. And so we'd be foolish to kind of say, well, he's 30, let's ship on. But I think you're right. I think certainly maybe not the summer, but I think maybe a year or two, we need to look at maybe bringing someone in who's going to take the reins off Kante because he can't go forever.
Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, it's good. It's good that the injuries are slightly clearing up. Obviously, still the 3 out that we mentioned. George, moving on to West Ham, find themselves in 4th place in the league. Obviously, as I touched on at the start of the show, no wins in their last 3, but a very positive season so far. And they seem to be following on from last season's Europa League finish, and they find themselves 4th. I mean, what have you made of them? And they've got some dangerous players. Obviously, we know Declan Rice is an outstanding footballer. But the likes of Antonio has been really good this season. Fornals, Lanzini, Thomas Souček forming a great partnership with Declan Rice in the middle. And obviously, Kurt Zouma at the back as well, who we know from his time at Chelsea. They're a good side, and they've got some good players that can cause us issues.
They've been one of the best teams to watch this season in the league for... I think the belief factor's just finally come into West Ham. They're finally starting to live up to the expectations that have been there for so long. They are a big club, West Ham. They've had some very iconic players play for them in the league in the past. I mean, we know about Frank and Joe Cole, Rio Ferdinand, Jermaine Defoe and the youth team. Like the list goes on and on and on. And they're looking like a real sort. And I like Bowen on the left. I think on the right, sorry. And there's been whispers that they might add in January and try and get Jesse Lingard back. So, I mean, if they were to add him again, if he's on any sort of form that he was when he was at his spell at West Ham, he can only add quality. And I think they have got a chance, certainly a chance of that 4th spot. But they're just starting, like I said, to dip just at the right time for Chelsea to play them. So, yes, it's going to be a tough game. But I think we could nick it, but it's going to be a lot tougher than Watford. And I think the important thing to remember is if we play like we did against Watford, they're going to be far more clinical than what Watford were. Oh
yeah, if we don't up our performance levels, we're not going to win that tomorrow lunchtime at all. What players do you think we need to look out for? I mean, obviously, do you feel that? I mean, obviously, we're constantly linked with Declan Rice. Do you feel this could be a bit of an audition for him as such? If he performs really well against Chelsea, then that might further consolidate our thoughts that, we need to get him in. Or to be honest, we've seen enough of him over the course of the season. It's just kind of another game for him, really.
Yeah, he's a professional. He's the captain, so he won't want to. He'll be professional as ever. And I don't think it's an audition as such. I think he's got the choice when he decides that West Ham aren't the level that he wants. I think he's got the choice of where he wants to go, and people will be in for him. All the big clubs in England certainly will be after his signature. We're hoping that obviously the relationship with him, and we all know Mason, can help maybe persuade him to come to Stamford Bridge. I think he'd be a great addition. We've mentioned that on previous podcasts that we've done about him possibly filling in Kante's boots as a new addition. But well, the battles tend to be won and lost in midfield. Those tend to persuade the outcomes of the match. So if Declan Rice has a decent game, manages to control it, he's going to have an easier game tomorrow than what should be there if Kante was playing. Obviously, he's not. So it's going to be a battle in midfield, and I expect Declan Rice to boss it because there's no reason why not.
I mean, and he's formed a pretty solid partnership with Thomas Souček in that middle of the park for West Ham. I mean, how careful have we got to be of West Ham's physical presence? Because the Souček's very good from set plays. The likes of Kurt Zuma at the back as well. West Ham have got a lot of physical presence from those set pieces, etc. How important is it that we combat that? Because that's going to be an area they're probably going to look to take advantage of.
Yeah, set plays is one. The breakdown is another one, when the ball comes loose. And these games tend to be won and lost on who's got the most desire, not necessarily the quality of players. I think the Watford game was different. I think you saw the quality of players that we could bring on and change the game and stretch it. And Ziyech coming on, scoring a goal. I don't think Watford had that in their tank. But, West Ham have some very good players that could fit in the Chelsea side. And I think it's just a question on Saturday lunchtime, who wants it more and who's going to go in for those tackles, who's going to try and win those first, second balls in the air. And I think, it sets the tone. And I think the first 10 minutes is going to be very, very hairy for Chelsea. They're going to have to settle it down quick and just try and keep the ball, because they will be, like most sides do, particularly at home, try and high press, start as they mean to go on. I think the one thing that counteracts that is West Ham tend to do have lapses of concentration in games. They don't manage games very well. They'll have a great section of the game, but there are other sections where they're very poor. So it's a really, really tough one to call, mate. I've got to be honest with you. I could see this going anyway, and like we said, if we perform like we did against Watford, I think we could be on for a defeat. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean,
how you touched on it? How imperative is it that we get off to a good start? Because against Watford, before the stoppage, for the unfortunate situation in the crowd, we started so badly.
Yes.
They were all over us. It like they were bang up for it. Obviously, a header was really well saved by Mendy early doors. We don't want West Ham to get off to a good start and our backs to be up against the wall. That crowd will be up for it as well. And we need to contain them and make sure that we don't get overrun in the opening exchanges.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we need an early goal. I mean, it helps, but you don't need an early goal. I think you just have to soak up the pressure and just be solid and organised and know what you're doing. I think against Watford, there's a part of it that because it was such a changed lineup that players hadn't played together, and there were, some players trying to find their feet and, get used to playing again, which sounds ridiculous being professional footballers, but there is an element of that. I think when you have such a stable side that the team in and out is difficult, particularly when we had three of the back four that were changed and midfield duo had changed. So that's where it's going to be difficult for us, I think. We don't have that consistency in the team at the moment because of the changes we're having to make. But if we can keep them out for the first 10 minutes and there is an element of luck also, because if they don't take their chances. But yeah, that is imperative at first. If we can control that first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, keep them out, I think Chelsea will finish the game stronger.
Yeah, it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be a great game. We won at West Ham last season, but we won 1-0 with Timo Werner goal. But obviously West Ham this season are pretty good at home. Obviously beaten Liverpool, put 3 past them there. So they are dangerous, and we are going to have to be on top of our game. But moving on to the predicted lineup then, George. I mean, obviously last time out when we did this against Watford, we got it absolutely bang on. So let's see if we can make it 2 games on the spin where we get this right. Kicking it off with the goalkeeper. I mean, this is not really much of a conversation. Edouard Mendy between the sticks. He's obviously going to be a big miss in January when he goes off to the African Cup of Nations. But how important is his kind of commanding of the box going to be, particularly that West Ham are going to be such a big threat from set plays?
Yeah, again, he showed it against Watford, didn't he? Again, some of those loose balls that he came in to come and catch, and got a few knocks in that match as well. And there was one in particular where he was well off his line and came running out for a ball that was played through, and he got there first, but he took a knock. But it just shows the commitment he's got and the intelligence of where to play as well, where he has to stand in his box. And he's, we can say it every week, but he's a shoo-in. So he's been absolutely fantastic, and we need him.
And for the first time in 4 games, there is going to be a change in the back 3. Obviously, no Trevor Chalobah, as we touched on earlier. George, I think it's probably quite a simple swap, isn't it? It'll just be Thiago Silva coming back into the lineup to play alongside Rudiger and Christensen. Do you think any chance that Aspie plays in the back 3, or it's going to be those 3?
No, for me, it's those 3. I think we'd be, yeah, I think there's nothing else to say there. I think he's the easy swap. He came on at half time against Watford, controlled it, and he'll be the one to put in again. So I think it'll be those three.
Yeah, yeah, I'd have to agree. That's obviously the best three that we've got available. But I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on Tuchel's comments about Christensen not having played in the last few games because of his contract situation. What did you make of that?
Interesting, because you don't. I think there's a detachment. Sometimes we just think footballers should just get on with it, but they are people, and it's not easy playing. Sometimes people thrive off those sorts of things and try and prove a point and say, well, I'm going to fight for my contract. Other players get a bit nervy and think, it's particularly if you're a defender, I think, to think that you haven't got a contract and if you make a mistake, people think differently about you or the manager and you're not in the team, and it's difficult to come in and out. I think it's one of the hardest positions to come in for. So obviously we love Andreas, and I think he's a fantastic footballer. But again, no one's position is safe under Thomas Tuchel, so it's an interesting one, and it must just be playing on his mind, mate. And you have to manage it as much as the contract situation is difficult. I think it's quite risky playing players like that who have personal circumstances that can affect performance. I mean, that's just.
But then should Rudiger be playing on that same hand, because he's also not agreed a new contract and is out of contract? But I mean, I think Tuchel's reasoning was that Rudiger's stance has always been the same, whereas apparently Christensen's been offered something, but he's not sure if he was happy with it, and now he's not happy with it. I mean, he's also out of contract in the summer. George, obviously, I thought this was basically a done deal. I mean, it's been reported months ago that this was all but done. But we're approaching January. Christensen's agent has obviously been in contact with other clubs, naturally. Yeah. I thought it was definitely going to stay, but each day that goes by and this is not signed and it drags on, a part of me thinks, shit, we could actually, there is a small chance now that we might lose Christensen as well.
Yeah, of course, because we don't know the details. I mean, Christensen might want a new challenge. He's been at Chelsea. People forget he's been at Chelsea a long, long time, and he's still, even though he's had moments where he's been a shoo-in in the first team, he's still not, one that you put on the team sheet straight away. You do still have, right, is it going to be Chalobah? Can we play Azpilicueta? So for a player of his age, maybe he wants a new challenge. And obviously, like you said, agents knocking on the door thinking, right, he's a high-profile player now. We want this amount of money. Chelsea probably think that's ridiculous. We're not offering that to someone who's not even a first-team starter. So there's lots of complications. It can be all sorts of things. Obviously, we know how good he is, but you can't keep everyone happy in a team. And I don't know, mate. It's a difficult one.
It's a difficult one, but yeah, I think it's going to be fairly obvious that will be the back three. It's the best three we've got available, and it would make sense. It would make sense to go with that. Moving on to the wing back areas, as we touched on, Reece James is back, so he's obviously straight back into the starting lineup. That's just going to be a massive plus again. So good going forward, a real threat, can score goals, delivery's great as well. And he's going to add an extra dimension to that attack, because with this formation, obviously you sacrifice one attacking player to have an extra defender. So those wing backs are really important. And his performance has been outstanding this season, as we've touched upon. And he can be a real big weapon in this game.
Yeah, we need him for a lot of things. Delivery going forward, combat that physical presence that West Ham hold. He definitely provides that. The energy as well on the right-hand side, I think. No disrespect to, Hudson-Odoi or Azpilicueta, but they obviously lack in that area with, Azpilicueta will lack with pace and delivery, and Hudson-Odoi will lack with a bit of defensive experience. So James is the perfect fit, and we need him for this game, and it's good to have him back. And obviously, I think that the left back speak for itself as well, who's going to play. Yeah,
I think obviously moving on to that left-hand side, I mean, Marcos Alonso, 3 games in a week. I mean, that's quite a lot, but we presume it's going to be him. I mean, it's not going to be Azpilicueta, and it's probably unlikely to be Callum Hudson-Odoi in a game of this magnitude. So, do we think Marcos Alonso here?
Yeah, so it's an easy one for me. Bar an injury, I think he just has to play.
I mean, what did you make of him against Watford? Because I know there's still a section of the fan base that just don't rate him at all and just aren't keen on him.
I rate him personally, mate. I think I agree that defensively he lacks that pace, sometimes overcommits and gets done on the turn. But going forward, he's very good. again, great delivery. He offers something from a set piece. Very good. Probably one of our best corner kick takers. I mean, I haven't seen one Alonso corner that's managed to hit the near post. So that's a fucking first for Chelsea. So listen, it's not, I know people are critical, but let's be honest. We've got our top left back in the country out with an ACL, and Alonso would fit into most people's first team as left back. So we're very blessed. And I'm happy with him at left back.
Yeah, he needs to carry on and try and rediscover that form he showed earlier in the season. But I think the more games he plays, that he should come back to start getting near that level, which is what we need in this crucial run of games. George, moving into midfield. Obviously on Wednesday night, that was the key area where we just got dominated in. We were worried about that before the game, a pivot of Salniguez and Loftus-Cheek. Obviously, Kovacic and Kante are still out. Sal is definitely not going to start after his shocker against Watford. So it's looked like, George, a third opportunity on the spin for Loftus-Cheek here. And I think against United and against Watford, he hasn't taken any of those two opportunities. So how important is it in this time, in another big game, a London derby away from home, that he actually puts in a big performance? And also, how much of a difference do you think it will make to him having Jorginho alongside him?
Yeah, I think to be fair, the Watford game, he's a bit stitched up because Sal was not going to offer him anything defensively. Any sort of communication, can't rely on him. So he was a bit stitched up there. And he does show moments of just like where he really uses his attributes, like those bursting drives forward where he just knocks people off the ball and carries. But we don't have to tell him. He knows that this is a huge opportunity for him at the moment. And he's probably performed under par. But like we said, mate, because of the person going to be potentially alongside him, I think it's this game's probably his most critical out of the three to perform well. And I'm really, really hoping he has a solid performance at the weekend.
Oh, mate, I hope he does as well, because once those other guys get back fit and playing, Ruben's probably going to be a bench player, because that's where he is at the moment in the pecking order in the squad. But he needs to do everything he can to make the most of the opportunity that's been presented himself with injuries to key players in that part of the pitch. So yeah, this is a massive opportunity for him. Jorginho alongside will help him. So hopefully we can see a performance from Ruben like we've seen previously. George alongside him is obviously going to be Jorginho, we would expect. How important is it that he returns? Because he's so vital to the way we play, and he just controls the game in the middle of the park and just dictates the tempo.
Yeah, he's critical to how, particularly in these away games where it's difficult, and you need that player to break up the play. Kante does it so well, but Jorginho is a different type of player that's just always very calm on the ball, picks the right pass. He's got a hell of a eye for a killer pass as well. He does tend to have those moments where he completely strips another team's back forward, just one killer pass, and he's done it on numerous occasions. Obviously, he's the penalty taker as well in case that happens. So I think if he's fit, he comes back in. My only one about Ruben, I know Ruben will play, and I know we discussed it, but Mason Mount possibly could be playing in that midfield, and I know we looked at it at Watford, but that's my only question mark there, because I think Mason will play.
I mean, I personally wouldn't play Mount in a two-man pivot, but we did see a change of formation in the second half against Watford. And Mount did drop a bit deeper to almost make a bit of a three in there with Chalobah and Loftus-Cheek.
Yeah,
that is an option, but I'd be surprised if Tuchel went with a three-man midfield from the off. But I think that is an option that could happen at some point during the game if circumstances dictate. But yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think in a big away game, mounting a two-man pivot is probably not what we're looking for. But George, moving on to the front three, I just wanted to read out some quotes from Thomas Tuchel from the presser earlier when he was asked about whether it was time to start Lukaku. He said, "I will not tell you. He's in training. He's eager to start. He wants to start. It is difficult for Romelu and all the other guys after injuries to hit top level. We should try always to reach it. Watford caused us a lot of problems, didn't allow us many chances, and it was a mental game to hang in there and be ready to be clinical. Tomorrow will be new questions." So not really giving too much away there. Lukaku does have a great record against West Ham, I saw before we came on. 11 starts, 11 goals and 4 assists. But with Kai Havertz having played really well against Watford in the week, do you think it's a bit of a gamble to start Lukaku, given that he's still working his way back after quite a long time out?
So tough, because there's no doubt that, you found that stat. There's no doubt that the analysts and Thomas Tuchel know that stat as well. So some players are just married very well against certain opposition. We saw it with Drogba against Arsenal. There's certain players that just love playing against certain clubs. So you have to look at that, and that's a factor. But I agree, mate. I think it's just too soon for Lukaku still. He didn't have enough time in the game against Watford. And he had a lot of good things after the game to say about Kai. He said that Kai was one of the performers, despite the shocking overall performance, it was actually one of the positives.
Mate, he was really good.
So I would be very surprised, given those comments, that he would then not play. So I think Kai will go in there.
Yeah, I agree. But then obviously Tuchel not giving much away in those comments I just read out. Equally, part of me I think Havertz should start, but part of me just wouldn't be surprised if actually we saw Lukaku in from the off.
Yeah, I think if we were to get one of them wrong in the lineup, I think that could be potentially the one.
Yeah, I would agree. But mate, Havertz was really good, and it's just frustrating because there's so much ability there, but he just doesn't do it on a consistent level. But he looks really good in that kind of false 9 position. He's physical. He holds the ball up while he brings other people into play. It's just a shame we don't see it on a consistent basis. But hopefully, he can push on and put in another good performance against West Ham. George, this is where it gets always tricky for Chelsea. I mean, let's go with that left-hand side to begin with. Christian Pulisic played from the off against Watford. I thought he was poor, distinctly average, really didn't offer a lot. Callum Hudson-Odoi found himself on the bench after starting the last 8 games on the spin. Possibly tactical, probably also to give him a bit of a rest, considering there's a lot of football coming up. For me, Pulisic didn't do anything to suggest that he deserves to start on that left-hand side. So do you think it's as simple as Callum's going to come straight back in?
I don't think it's as straightforward as that, but you'd probably expect that based on the performance. There are definitely going to be some changes from the side that played Watford, because he wasn't impressed at all. Yeah, I agree. Pulisic was poor. My only thing, this is a really tough one again. I'd probably just agree with you, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went Pulisic and gave him another opportunity against West Ham, because he's the type of player that, again, a little bit more physicality. But yeah, I agree. I think I'm just pushing towards Callum Hudson-Odoi to come back in. Just.
Yeah, yeah. If I was picking a team, that's what I would do. Is probably just with Hudson-Odoi, come back in. But again, because you've got so many options there, just nothing would surprise you. I mean, I equally wouldn't be surprised if he played Mason Mount on that left hand side and Hakim Ziyech started. Maybe. I mean, Ziyech has been in good form, and obviously Tuchel today, when asked about Hakim Ziyech, was really quite positive about him. He said, "I like him. I can feel it that he feels better now. He was always very ambitious with the shoulder injury, but I feel that he can get 100%. He smiles, feels decisive, had a huge impact from the bench. He is in good form and a good state of mind." I mean, that's obviously positive comments from the manager on Ziyech there. Do you think that's enough for him to start? I mean, realistically, he's not going to start over Mason Mount for me. So it's just a question of whether Hudson-Odoi doesn't play at all. But I mean, mate, would you start Hakim Ziyech, or do you think he makes a better impact from the bench?
Yeah, I was just about to say that from that quote from the press conference, that if I was to get a highlighter out, I'd probably highlight the off the bench. I think some players, similar to what Pulisic does, really is just when the game's a bit stretched and you've got a bit more space, and certainly a player of his energy and his quality, that he likes to cut inside and shoot on that left foot. I think he offers more off the bench personally than starting a game like this, where it's very physical and intense and in your face. I think when he gets a bit more space in between the low block, he's better. So I agree, mate. I think if there was going to be a change, it would probably be Hudson-Odoi coming out and Mason playing on that side, and then starting Ziyech. But Mount's definitely going to play because of his impact that he played in the game against Watford. So I think Ziyech's just a better player off the bench for the time being.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like you touched on, I think Pulisic makes a better impact from the bench as well. And it's going to be important, George, in this match particularly, to have options from the bench. The options coming on could make a difference. And with the likes of, Lukaku, Ziyech, Pulisic, Timo Werner, perhaps to a lesser extent, given how poor he's been recently. But we've got some great options from the bench, which could ultimately prove very decisive in kind of swinging the game our way. But I mean, Mason Mount, obviously, great game against Watford. He's been in and out of form this season, in and out of the side. But I think for me personally, it's a no-brainer that when he plays, we are a better side.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. When he plays, we are 100% a better team. I don't have anything to add to that, mate. I think you summed that up perfectly.
Looking at the lineup there, obviously I had to switch the shirts halfway through to the yellow dots.
Yeah, classic. I was just about to say, I know.
Yeah, we're playing in the yellow shirt as modelled by yours truly. Looking forward to the old Wiz Khalifa vibes, black and yellow again on the weekends. So hopefully we can get two wins from two in the strip. But that lineup they've put together there, I think the back five and the midfield two is going to be spot on. Yes. Where I think we could be a little bit wrong is potentially the front three. I reckon one or two could be different. But I mean, having a look at that, mate, that looks pretty strong, and that's more than good enough to get a result, you would say, wouldn't you?
Yeah, mate. Well, if we get this spot on again, I think we should start asking Chelsea and sending in a bit of an email to see if we can be the analysts, because we've been quite hot on the lineups. We've only been 1 or 2 out, so we don't have any inside info with Thomas Tuchel, but we're bloody good at picking these. So
yeah, maybe we could always hope. But yeah, that's obviously our starting lineup, guys. Obviously, let us know in the comments or in the chat if you're watching now whether you agree or disagree. But yeah, that's looking more than good enough to try and get something from West Ham in what will be a really difficult game. But George, to round out then, mate, a couple of questions. First one, how important is it that we win this game or don't lose? Because obviously Manchester City and Liverpool are hot on our heels, don't look like dropping too many points in their current form. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a chance after this weekend that we might not be top of the table anymore. I mean, is that a big concern?
Yeah, I mean, you'd always rather be top than chasing, for sure. We've got I don't know if we've got much of a cushion now in goal difference.
No, slightly worse goal difference than Liverpool, but other than that, yeah.
I mean, it's not imperative. We can still afford to lose games because I've said before on the channel. I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I think there are going to be suspect games this season from all the top clubs.
100%.
But I agree, and I think if you were to look at West Ham, it's not one that you would look at and say if you lost. I mean, we lost when Frank was in charge. We lost in the last minute, didn't we? Against
we lost against them. Yeah.
It can happen, particularly against West Ham, who are on form at the moment. I wouldn't be too upset with the draw, but again, it's about performance for me. I mean, the Watford one is typical. If we can get a win like that, then great. If we can play ugly and win, but if we play well and it's one of those where it's like the Burnley game, it's just so frustrating because if we create chances, we should be taking them. And mate, I literally Ronaldo saved me again from going 10-5 down. So I'm not going to
10-4, mate. Don't give yourself too much credit there.
So for anyone listening, like whatever I predict, just go the complete opposite. So I'm going to go. Oh God. Let's go 1-0 to the Blues.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much, bar from the Liverpool game where I put us as down for a draw and the City game I put us down for a draw, I've predicted us to win every game this season. This is going to be a really tough one. I'm kind of on the fence a little bit. I'm very tempted to go with a draw, but I just think we've got enough about us to get a win. And this would be a statement victory away from home in and amongst a tough run of fixtures with games coming thick and fast.
Well, I'm just saying we haven't done very well against the teams in and around us. You know, draw at home to United, lost to Man City, draw
away at Liverpool.
Yeah, I know the circumstances. You can look at it and say, you know, yeah, we've done all right, but we still.
I mean, beat Tottenham, beat Arsenal. I know they're not kind of challenging the top. Yeah, as I said, I was very tempted with the draw, but I think we'll just nick it. I don't think there'll be a lot of goals in this one. I'm going to go with a 2-1. But yeah, obviously tomorrow lunchtime, live on BT Sport, 12:30 kickoff. Chelsea back in action as they bid to stay top of the Premier League table with the London derby against West Ham. That's just myself and George's thoughts on the game itself and our predicted lineup, looking to make it 2 from 2 on that perspective. But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in live. If you watched, if you're going to watch it back, then we hope you enjoy it. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you smash a like on this video. Please do subscribe to the channel. It takes seconds and it really helps us out. And we're edging closer to the 200 mark. So every new subscriber helps. So please do, click that subscribe button. And yeah, guys, let's hope Chelsea can make it 2 wins in a space of 3 days, stay top of the league. And we'll catch you in the match review tomorrow. Cheers, guys.